We are a block from where the blast occurred, and they are just treating people here on the side of the road about a block away.
And I will tell you, I'm a tactical guy. I was a sniper. Commanded a SWAT team. I commanded hostage rescue team. I've done hundreds of tactical operations, and sometimes you don't need to. I had Iran Contra.
They brought in the heavy firepower from the air and on the ground began preparing for guerrilla-style warfare.
Sometimes people do things for reasons that are not apparent. And it was like ATF's assault on Waco. That was ridiculous, stupid. And I know the guys that were there. I know some were shot. Some of my friends.
We got a guy barricaded in a cabin, armed to the teeth. He's got his family in there with him. Federal judge wanted him to come to court, and he was refusing to do that.
What difference does it make? We're getting ready to launch an assault on a cabin with kids in it, kill a bunch of people over a 1/4-inch shotgun barrel?
All right, we're joined today by Danny Coulson, and Danny has an extensive career in the FBI, so extensive that I'm going to narrow it down to, I guess, a through line is the best way I can put it, of right wing, or I'll just say extremism. And this is everything from Robert Mathews and the Order all the way through Oklahoma City and beyond. A lot of people, I feel, just cover only Oklahoma City or only Ruby Ridge, but there's a thorough line that goes through all this. And Danny wrote a magnificent book. It's called No Heroes. I will have a link in the description. I recommend everybody check this out. And how are you doing today, Danny?
Well, except for a really bad cold, which I obtained in Montana and brought back to Texas with me. I'm fine. If I sound a little scratchy, we'll just work through that.
No, I deeply appreciate that. Now, as I was stating just a minute ago, I'm trying to work on a timeline to kind of figure out everything that was going on, a lot of strife in the country and things like that. And it's hard to peg the beginning of these troubles. I'm loosely tying it to William Luther Pierce and the Turner Diaries, and I've interviewed
Oh,
his
yeah, I'm very
son.
familiar with that.
And of course, he, fell under George Lincoln Rockwell, and we could go back even further, but it's kind of like you got to start somewhere. So,
Yes.
William Luther Pierce kind of combined with the incidents that happened with Gordon Call and I believe Arthur Kirk. Would you say that's kind of a good genesis to the extremism, white supremacy, things like that followed?
Not exactly. I mean, Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazis, they've been around for a long time. I mean,
Sure.
their first mantra was immigration. That's what really had made them angry, and they were concerned about that. Um, but from my point of view, I think the Turner Diaries are where we start. That was the handbook for Tim McVeigh. Of course, his bombing in Oklahoma sort of mirrored the account that Pierce had in his books, and I think that it kind of became the Bible, at least McVeigh, and he sold that book all over the country. So a lot of people read it. A lot of people believed in it.
The book is called The Turner Diaries. In it, the FBI building in Washington is blown up by white supremacists. It may have been a blueprint for what happened in Oklahoma City. It was written by a man who propagates his message through mail order and radio broadcasts, and now mainstream bookstores.
Okay, and when I was interviewing his son, Kelvin Pierce, he did say that his father had definite contact with Timothy McVeigh
Oh, yes.
prior to the bombing, that they
Yes.
had a full-blown communication between the two of them, and he was highly influential to Timothy McVeigh. Would you agree?
No, absolutely. No doubt about it. He followed the path of the book. I mean, he made a bomb similar to the bomb that was used in the Turner Diaries. A slightly different firing terrain, and some things were different, but it's interesting. He in that book, they launched an attack on the FBI building and blew it up, and I think McVeigh While he didn't do that, he came close to it.
Yes, I think there was a courthouse down the line, but and I want to go into it. I mean, the Murrah building has again ties with well, April 19th because of Richard Snell, and I definitely want to go into that a little bit further. But another person who was influenced by the Turner Diaries, but actually he influenced Dr. Pierce. I hate calling him Dr. Pierce, but technically he did have a degree. Was Robert Mathews. Kelvin was telling me that um, William Pierce admired Robert Mathews very highly because he felt like everybody talked about doing things, but Robert Mathews actually was an active participant.
Well, he was clearly from the very start. Um, but I think we have to make a distinction here. Doing something and doing the right thing are two different things.
In 1984, Wayne Maness tracked the crimes of the Order from Spokane to California to Portland. The trail led to a safe house on Whidbey Island. And with Robert Mathews, the leader of the Order, refusing to surrender, gunfire erupted.
And then all of a sudden, in my face, machine gun fire.
I mean, most people don't act on their beliefs. Robert Mathews did, but his beliefs were total nonsense and BS and total racist. Um, and the tough guy. I mean, I was with Mathews. I talked to Mathews in Woodward Allen before he died, and he was very deferential to me. I'll tell you that. I think he respected authority, and at the time I was a commander of the hostage rescue team for the FBI, and he was deferential. I kept thinking I can get him out. If I could have got my hands on him, I could have jerked him through the window, and that'd have been the end of it. But I just never got to that scintilla of time where I could get him. But I felt disappointed that I wasn't able to keep the guy alive.
Can you tell me about Robert Mathews, the Order, and what ultimately happened?
Yeah, I can. They were going to rob armored cars and rob banks and get money for their movement, and he was just a part of it. We actually, the HRT went out to Utah and Idaho and surveilled them for a while, and we have some feedback now that he made the surveillance and wanted to come have a shootout with us, which would not have ended well for him. I will tell you that. We don't lose shootouts, and he ended up as a fugitive, and he was located on Whidbey Island in Washington, and the HRT was sent out to get him. We tapped him in a house and set up a perimeter, and we started negotiating, and I talked to him at length, trying to get him to come out. I'm a pretty good negotiator. I've negotiated some pretty bad guys out, and they're still alive today, at least some of them are. And I was disappointed I couldn't get him to come out because Robert he's a bright kid, a bad guy, but there's good in everybody. And I'd like to see him not die the way he did. He died a horrible death. I will tell you the HRT is a asset of our country, and they always have to be ready for some kind of big emergency. And after we had trapped him up there, the FBI headquarters came to me and said, "We may need you for something else. You may have to go overseas, and so come out." So they sent a SWAT team in to take our spot. So we started packing up, getting ready to leave, and we were no longer engaged there. And then a decision was made to put a flare inside of the building where he was, which flares do a couple of things. One, they start fires, and it started the dwelling on fire, and he died in there. And actually, I took some grief for that. I was called to headquarters and blessed out because I left. And I said, "Well, wait a minute, you told me to come back. I'm not the commander of the FBI. I command a team. And if the commander of the FBI says you come back because we may need to deploy you to some other hotspot in the world, then I go." And that's the way it ended. And it's too bad. I mean, I would like to finish that. I don't like to assume missions from other people, and I don't want anybody taking my mission either.
Yeah, I think we're going to be covering that definitely later now. You mentioned, he died in a fire, which is not exactly a mirror, but it's similar to Gordon Call, who also perished in a shootout and fire, I believe, with a sheriff.
Long before the radical right was claiming the road to Oklahoma City ran through Waco, Texas, and the Idaho Panhandle, it had made a martyr out of a man named Gordon Call.
I think they wanted me to fill out income tax papers, and I told them nothing doing.
This man, Gordon Call, killed 2 federal marshals in a shootout and in turn was shot and burned to death after a nationwide manhunt 12 years ago.
Do you think that this made them martyrs and helped exacerbate everything going forward?
No, I think everything makes them a martyr. If you're a member of a group and you die, I think you become a martyr. I think people are looking for martyrs. Some people, crazy people are. I'm not. No, I don't think it had anything to do with that. But you never know. You can't get in the heads of these guys. I mean, I've worked with these guys forever. I've negotiated with them. I've become friends with some of them. I've had some of them at my house for dinner. Some of the most desperate people in the world. And they ate dinner with me and my family. So I kind of know them, but I'm not sure I understand them, frankly.
Well, and I'm guessing that people can change over time too. Like I believe you became friends with Kerry Noble later in life,
Very
and he
good friend.
kind of had
Yeah.
an
Kerry
arc.
came to my daughter's wedding.
Okay.
Now, I'll tell you a funny story. He was at my house one night. I wrote a book, which you just showed, and we had a big book signing party at my house, and there were a lot of cops there, and a lot of lawyers, and a lot of businessmen, and there was a young lawyer that I do some work with, and she went up to Kerry Noble, and she said, "Oh, hi, what's your name?" He said, "I'm Kerry." And he said, "Well, how do you know Danny?" He said, "Well, Danny put me in jail." And she went, "Oh, that's nice. I mean, what do you say?" And she slid away, went over to my wife and said, "That big guy over there?" And Dave said, "Yeah, he's a terrorist. And he put him in jail." And I mean, he came to a lot of events. We were friends. We both are men of faith. We both believe in Jesus, and we follow his teachings. And he then did. Kerry did not always. Kerry kind of left the path for a while and came back, and I think that's a tribute to his faith. And sadly, he passed away a few years ago, but he was a good man. I would call him about spiritual things a lot. So it's, you got to remember, we were facing each other, machine guns and hand grenades. I was ready to kill him. He was ready to kill me. And then we ended up, he came to my daughter's wedding. He came to a lot of events of my own. And I had a lot of respect for Kerry. Just glad it didn't come.
Very true. And by the way, this brings us to a really important date. And I want to keep, because this date goes on and on and on. And it goes all the way back to the founding of the country itself. And that's Lexington and Concord. And it's April 19th,
Yes.
known as Patriots Day. And a lot of the extremist groups have co-opted the message of patriotism and wrapped themselves in it. I'm not saying that there's a definite tie, but it's an interesting date that keeps happening. I think you brought up to the day before Hitler's birthday as well.
Yes.
Now, on the softer side, it's also the day before 420, which is a holiday for those who like to imbibe in cannabis, and that's completely on the other end of things. But
I did not
anyway,
know that. I don't do that, so I would have no familiarity.
fair enough. Fair enough. Now, this brings us to the first recurrence of modern April 19th, and Kerry Noble was involved, and I believe Jim Ellison was involved as well. Am I correct on this for the CSA, or am I off track?
Well, yes, the CSA it's the most heavily armed terrorist group ever faced by law enforcement. When I was the HRT commander, I was called to FBI headquarters by the deputy director and said, "I got a mission for you." And he started saying, "Well, yeah, we have a group. They have hostages. They are armed with AK-47s, M4s, hand grenades, Claymore mines. They have night vision gear, and they train regularly, and they're pretty heavily armed, and it's your job to go get them."
We decided that we needed to have all the different groups to come together and try to bring forth a national organization.
We've got to get ourselves raised spiritually first. to know the truth of God to the best of our ability and to commit our lives to Him.
And so I said, the deputy director, I said, okay, can I deploy an advance team? And he looked at me and said, wait a minute, you didn't say, oh no, oh my God. I said, what? He said, well, everybody I described this group to, they always say, oh my God, no. And you didn't say a damn thing. I said, well, you don't pay me to say that. You pay me to go get them. And when I go brief the team, they're not going to say that either. They're just getting ready to go get these guys and do a job on them. And he looked at me and said, I don't think you have a lot of humility. And he said, I'm not sure you need much. I said, well, I don't know if I do or not, but my team doesn't. And you pay me to go get bad guys and not to make explanations or wring my hands or whatever. Just go do it. And exactly that same thing happened exactly. I went down to the academy, called the team together and described what we were going to do. And they said, okay, they're sitting there taking notes. And it was amazing. And the way they handled that thing. And you have no idea the complication of a mission that big, especially when they're working for God. That's one thing we got to remember here is that I have strong faith, and the guys that have faith often have strong faith. And we had a minister on our team that would lead us in prayer and ask us to be swift and true and be successful and save people.
On April 19th of 1985, the federal government surrounded our property, started a 4-day standoff. I became the negotiator between our group and the government.
Some of the members of CSA wanted to shoot it out with the feds, and they became even more entrenched and extreme in their views and willing to take very extreme risks.
And guess what? They were having the same prayer. And ours seemed to work out and theirs didn't. So you can explain that. I can't.
Fair enough. Now, this ultimately went down, I believe, on April 19th. Another figure that was involved, I think it was Pastor Robert Millar. And he's going to come back into this again later on. Like I said, there's this weird weaving of different people. And Robert Millar ran Elohim City, and that's in Oklahoma. This was in Arkansas that the incident went down. Is it 1982? April 19th? Something like that. Anyway, you ran that operation, it sounds like, then from start to finish. Like you had complete control over what was going on. And from what I understand, nobody was killed.
That's exactly right. I think it's important to know that we started it. I did the first surveillance there. I took an assault team inside their compound. I was actually on the front porch of Jim Ellison's porch and Carrie Noble's porch and did a recon inside.
They want to pour out more drugs into this earth. They want to pour out the pornography, the humanistic junk that's in our teachings today. Those type of people are going to have to go, one way or another, whether it's fire from heaven or fire from a barrel. They're going to have to go.
And so we knew everything about them. And so you can plan for eventualities, and you can also plan for alternatives. So if this doesn't work, this will work. Or I mean, we are big option planners. We don't think we're real smart. So the first one works, they never do. And so it's important to note that we started that. We did not start Waco. We did not start Ruby Ridge. We inherited those. And Charles Beckwith, the founder of Delta, became a friend of mine and a mentor. And he said, don't be afraid your upper command will give you an impossible mission. Your boys will figure out how to do that. Your biggest fear that you'll get a failed mission from another failed mission operation that fails, and they give it to you. And you'll forever be tarred with a brush of their failure. And that's Ruby Ridge, that's Waco. CSA was different. I got to start that. And I had smart people planning it. And I had the total support of FBI headquarters. They would give me anything I wanted. And so we were successful, 100%. I won the Attorney General's Award that year. Didn't deserve it, but I took it because I bought a house with it. And I think there's a huge difference there. Don't take on someone else's failures because it just doesn't work.
Right, and I definitely wanted to cover that because I think it's a significant point in the history. Also, maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, you're a rare FBI agent around who actually worked for J. Edgar Hoover himself
Yes. Depends how old
and
I am,
met
right?
him. Well, I'm not trying to pick on you, but there are not many. I've interviewed Kenneth Lanning, who was in the behavioral science unit. I believe he also worked with or under Hoover and a few others. But is would you say that possibly there was a certain FBI ethos and maybe it changed politically, like in the middle of your career, and that could have caused some of the later issues?
That's a really good question. Um, there was a ethos under Hoover. It was called excellence and don't quit and don't fail. And he was adamant about that. The FBI doesn't fail. And whatever it takes, you do it. If it takes one agent to do it or 1,000, you put 1,000 agents on it. When I arrested McVeigh, I told him, I have 1,000 agents on your case, by the way. And it was like, oh my God, really? Who has that? And so I think that was important. It kind of breeds something in you where you just don't fail. I mean, you don't plan for failure. You plan to avoid failure. And I think that's really pretty it's a pretty important concept. Now, did it change? Oh hell yeah. It changed really. It changed more after Free. Um, when we started getting these other fools in, like Mueller and those guys, and most recent
Comey?
director. Oh yeah, I've interviewed Comey. Actually, he interviewed me. But anyway, that's the side. And it became totally political. I mean, it didn't matter what the law said; you just do it. I'll tell you an anecdote here. When I was the deputy assistant director, and I was number 3 down the chain, and I had all the terrorism and all the violent crime, and had some pretty important cases. And I got called to go meet with the Attorney General of the United States. And the director called me on the phone, said, go meet with Janet. And I said, well, shouldn't you be doing that? She said, no, you got to go to, I don't know. So I go to her office, and Jamie Gorelick is there, her deputy. And Jamie told me, I want you to open terrorism cases on every abortion clinic protester in the country. And I said, I can't do that. That's against the law. Protesting in an abortion clinic is the First Amendment. You have a right to do that. And your guidelines say I can't open a case on the First Amendment protected activity. And they disagreed. And I said, well, I'm not doing it. And they referred it to their office of legal counsel. And a woman there who I knew very well ran it. She said, he's right. You can't do that. And so I left and took my team with me and thought, well, I'm going to get this one on the backside, I guess. And I did. A couple of years later, they put me on leave for 2 years and wouldn't let me work. But I think that epitomizes what you're saying. Is it already changed the law, and it changed more under the most recent administration, and for the bad. I mean, I get sick of my stomach when I think about some of the things. I mean, we're gonna investigate Opus Dei and the PTA. I used to go after terrorists to kill people. I never investigated the PTA. I'm not even a member of the PTA, but I wouldn't investigate it. But I think your analysis is perfect. Yeah, it's changed dramatically, and I hope it's changing back a bit. But I'm still concerned.
Well, it takes, in my opinion, a lot to change an organization when there's an entrenched group of people, especially at the middle management level. I mean, there was somebody I interviewed who was talking about his time in California under Gray Davis. He was part of the Gray Davis administration,
Yeah.
and was he said he was talking to somebody who worked in the Capitol there, and they were saying, "Yeah, whatever, you're weebies." I'm sorry, they said we're weebies. And he goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, we be here when your ass is gone. And that, sometimes people throw it out and they say the deep state. To me, the deep state is the entrenched bureaucracy of people who spend careers in particular positions, and they're there through every administration going up the line. They build their own alliances. They work the hiring principles and things like that. So if you have a change in the fabric of the organization, it takes an awful long time for that to actually change. You can replace the person at top all day, but if the infrastructure believes in something different, good luck.
Well, that's true and not true.
Okay.
Comey changed it. He changed it dramatically. He did his thing. Remember the big speech he gave about Hillary Clinton? About all the bad things she did, decided not to prosecute her? That violated AG guidelines. The Attorney General guidelines. FBI didn't make prosecutive decisions. I was there a long time. I never made one. I'd recommend them, but I never made any. And he just did that on his own and totally changed the course of the FBI, I think. I will tell you, I met with Comey. I'd been in Africa on a job, and he called the Dallas office and wanted to meet with me. I was gone. I was doing security work for the president of Nigeria or something. And he wanted to meet with me. And so I called the SAC and the commander. I said, what's this about? He said, I don't know. He said he wants to meet with you in my office tomorrow morning. So I went in, and Comey came in with his little minions and all a bunch of little punks. And he wanted to brief me on the same thing he briefed you on with regard to Hillary Clinton and his decisions and why he made them and all that stuff. And I'm sitting there the whole time, an hour and a half, thinking, why am I here? I don't work for the FBI. I'm retired. I do other things there. And so at the end of it, he said, do you have any questions? I said, no. He said, do you have any comments? I said, do you want comments? He said, yeah. I said, well, you need to get somebody on your staff that's not looking for a promotion or a transfer that tells you what you're doing is the wrong thing. And he got up and walked out. That was it. I've never talked to him since. But it's different. And I think that there were very few people in the Bureau for that period of time who stood up and say, no, we're not doing it. That's just wrong. There's right and wrong in the world. There are laws, there are guidelines, there are statutes, and we need to follow those. If we don't, then we're part of the anarchy.
Wow. Okay, so now to pivot back to the 80s, we've gone through a little bit with the CSA. Richard Snell, when did you first cross his path? Was he part of that CSA crackdown, or he just was tangentially there?
Well, Snell was he was a mover and evil and ultimately murdered some people and was ultimately executed. He was sort of the spirit for CSA in Lom City and other groups because he was such he's pretty charismatic, actually. And he was executed about the time that we took down CSA. And they followed him. They believed in him. What they didn't believe in was dying. They always say they're committed until they face us, and they're not so committed anymore. We use a lot of psychological warfare on them also. That didn't come out of my brain. It came out of the behavioral science unit at the FBI Academy. And they had me negotiate, which is kind of a joke. I mean, my negotiation strategy is come in or we'll kill you. And but it worked. It worked here. And Snell was a bad guy. And he probably got what he deserved. I know he got what he deserved. He was tried, convicted, and executed, and that's fine with me.
It's funny that you said that you're not a great negotiator and all that. I'm going to push back a little, because is it possible, because you're kind of plain spoken and things like that, that maybe you were better? You're a Christian. A lot of these people are Christians. I think they're misguided on some of their faith. But anyway, because you're more plain spoken and less bookish, did that possibly serve to your advantage? Like they
I think it
could
definitely
trust
did.
you more.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I'm a lawyer, so I talk a lot. And so I'm not saying
Sure.
what I say is true always, but that's what lawyers do. They just talk and convince people. Um, yeah, I think it did help. I think you got to remember that when we got CSA, the FBI has all these assets. So they did then. I think they still do now. But they deployed with me a couple of negotiators who are really, really good. And they told me, said, the commander said, I'm sorry, the academy says you have to know all negotiations. You're the commander here. Ellison's the commander. He won't want to talk to you. He won't talk to us. And which is totally a violation of that principle. You never have the commander negotiate. And they were good in preparing me. I don't say I'm very good, but I think they prepared me well. They did a really good job at that. They they reminded me that they don't use profanity, and I have a very strong propensity for a lot of profanity. I'm not very sweet talker, and so I had to. They would practice, and they spend hours with me every day. Being Ellison, that'd be me, and they'd talk, and we'd go back and forth, and um, uh, often I would throw in a few son of a bitches just to get in their gourd a little bit,
Mhm.
and that kind of broke the tension. Which there was a lot of tension there, as you can imagine. They were pouring a lot of rockets at me, so I think they did a good job. Um, when I met with Ellison the first time, um, and Noble and others, I'm just me. I'm not very pretentious. I don't think I'm very smart. I'm just a common guy who had some opportunities and didn't mess them up too bad. And I think that helps. I can speak their language. I'm a Southerner. This is Arkansas. Have a little bit of that accent probably still. And at one point, Ellison, when he came out to talk to me, he said, "Will you talk to my wife?" I said, "Sure, I'll talk to anybody." So she came out and she and I chatted just one on one, standing on the road and defilade so they couldn't shoot me. And it went pretty well because they came out ultimately um, with the help of with a pastor. So he helped me more than they probably. We broke a lot of rules there too, by the way.
Yeah, Millard's going to come back into it because, again, Elohim City, Richard Snell, he was the spiritual advisor for Richard
Yes,
Snell on the day of the execution, but he also, I believe, was potentially tied to Timothy McVeigh through Elohim City. So
he was definitely.
there's it all kind of weaves together.
Yeah, no doubt. Um, we did a lot of crazy things there. The first guy to come out was Kerry Noble, and he came out, and our snipers engaged him and sent him back in. Said, "Get back in there. We'll tell you when to come out." And that's kind of unusual for the FBI. When they come out, we generally take them. And I got a call from one of the SACs there, a commander there, it was above me actually, came to me and headquarters wants to know why you sent him back in. And I looked at him. He said, "You want me to tell them to shut in their hat?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. It's none of their damn business. It's my business. I got this case. They know." And so then later, Kerry came out, and Kerry and I had a long talk out. And an agent named Larry Bonney, who really was a planner here.
Come Saturday morning, and the state police begin to move. It's something that's been expected for days, ever since the state police and FBI closed in earlier this week, making their presence known to members of a militant political group, the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord. They brought in the heavy firepower from the air, and on the ground began preparing for guerrilla-style warfare.
Here at the entrance, Eyewitness News was met by Kerry Noble, a CSA elder. Noble says he doesn't want a confrontation, but if authorities storm the camp, be war. There will be war.
If they wanted to make war, yeah.
And we talked about what's going on. They thought we were Delta. And he said, "You look like Delta." I said, "Yeah, Delta thinks I look like Delta too, but we're not. We're different." And that started it right there. That the briefing by our hero scientists and negotiators. I mean, I wouldn't have known that. I'm not very smart. Um, they figured out what it would take to get inside their heads, and we did. And we, I said earlier that, they're very courageous till they face us, and we have the ability to kill them. And we don't generally, but sometimes we do. But we have that deadly ability, and I think they realized we weren't fooling around here, and they made numerous attempts to get out at night. They tried to escape, and I kept sliding my men around, and I had a really good sniper leader, and I had a good assault leader, and we held our ground. And every time they'd come out to try to get away, our guys would intercept them and say, "Get back in there." It was like a big brother saying, "Don't come out, you're gonna get spanked." So I think all that stuff really got inside their heads. Um, I told Ellison one day, he said, he talked about a fight. I said, "Who are you gonna fight? The only one we are. We're ghosts. You already seen that. You're not gonna win. You need to think about living to fight another day, not today."
Now, every time you didn't actually engage with somebody and didn't, shoot them when they came out and sent them back in, did that build up the trust that they could come out safely?
I think it did two things, sir. The first thing, it was helpless. They're not getting away. Number two is that they can trust us, that we'll do what we say we're going to do. And I think that's really important. And your analysis is perfect.
Now, back to Kerry Noble. I've seen some interviews with him, and because of research, especially the Murrah building echo on that.
Oh, yeah.
From what I understand, he might have been kind of shifting in his values
Oh, yeah.
and how he felt at the time. I believe he said that they were going to bomb the Murrah building, but somebody injured themselves when they were trying to put the explosives together, and they determined, you know what, maybe not a good idea. Maybe God's telling us to
That's exactly right.
leave that the hell alone. And another incident where he was going to harm people at a church who happened to be, I guess, gay. But when he got there, he came to the realization that, well, they're worshiping God like I worship God, and I don't feel comfortable in harming these people because we kind of see eye to eye in some ways.
Well, arming means blowing them up. He had a bomb in his hand.
Okay,
He carried
tell me
he
about
carried
it.
a bomb in there, and he's going to blow them up and kill them all. Yeah, God talked. I think God talked to him and say, "What you're doing here, buddy, is wrong. Think about it." I think Kerry got caught up in it because they started off as peaceful people, and they were cedar cutters, and they were trying to live off the land and stay away from the abomination of what they thought was the United States for America and live on their own. And then they started following the ideas of a guy named Gaiman, and he started this Christian identity stuff. I think you know about that. That's where the Garden of Eden is. Story is not temptation; it's a sexual relationship between Satan and Eve, and from that was a baby was born named Cain, and Cain was the father of the movement. And Christianity still exists in the country; it exists heavily in England, and it's very sinister. It's an abomination. I mean, that'll be me. But that they fell into that mode. And then here's one thing that I think we all need to remember is that if God tells you to do something, you're probably going to do it. And they believe God was telling them to do something. And that's the way they got going. And that's the way they continued until they met us. And then they decided, well, maybe we ought to do something else.
Yes, and Christian identity, I know, is around to this day, and I think it's actually growing in influence, sadly. I saw an interview with Charlie Kirk when he was on a campus, and there was a video clip going around of somebody coming up to him and talking to him, and the person was talking about Huawei, or I forgot the term, etc. And I brought back somebody I'd interviewed before. His name is Jeff Scoop, and he was the former head of the, I guess you'd call him American Nazi Party or whatever the name is or what have you. But when he watched the segment with me, he said that that person talking to Charlie Kirk was full on Christian identity. He said that those
There you
were
go.
the terminology, the questioning, and things like that. And I just thought that was interesting because Charlie Kirk, who obviously was assassinated, it was not by these same people, but Charlie Kirk was almost a bulwark on the right, who I feel was holding back some of these factions, if you will, the more toxic side, if you will.
Maybe. I don't know a lot about Charlie Kirk. I know the people that did his security where he was killed. I'm pretty familiar with all that. But I think he was a good man. I think he brought the message to the youth of America. That's where we need to be. And this monster that killed him, I hope they execute him.
They are seeking the death penalty, so that there is that possibility.
I hope so. If it was Texas, they'd kill him. We would execute him down here.
True. Well, I mean, I don't want to rule Utah out. They were the first execution after it resumed with Gary Gilmore.
Yeah, they shoot you. They shoot you.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
It was not. He asked for it.
I'm a big Texan supporter.
Mm.
I think we should be a country, frankly, and facetiously. I hope they do. I think they're pretty conservative, pretty tough, and we'll see what happens.
A trivia point. In this complete sidetrack. Do you know that the execution of Gary Gilmore led to the most famous slogan in marketing history?
I do not.
Yeah. You've heard of Nike. Just do it.
I have.
It's a variant. He said, "Let's do it," if I recall, as his last words. But
yeah,
they took that and it became "Just do it." So
I love it.
Really
like
odd, catchy thing there.
Yeah,
but,
I'm gonna use that.
There you go. There you go. Okay. Now another name that came up, Louis Beam. Did you have any?
No, I know about Louis Beam. I know his background, but I had absolutely no connection with him whatsoever. He didn't come in my path.
Okay, so now to finish up in Arkansas when the CSA went down and all that, did it just happen to be on April 19th that
Yes.
they got wrapped up? Or, okay, so it was a coincidence at that time.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about April 19th. I mean, you got to remember what I'm doing. I've got unbelievable firepower. HRT is very formidable. CSA had unbelievable firepower. They were working for God. They wanted to have a war with me. They wanted an apocalyptic type thing. And I mean, the eyes of the world are on us, and the eyes of the FBI are on me. Wanting me to get this done. And I was a little occupied. I was pretty busy. And there were times when I was fighting with these minions at headquarters and trying to negotiate and set tactics and do all the things we do. But let me say this. I had great support. The best SAC in the country is Robert Ricks, commanded Oklahoma when he was there. Tony Dano's another really good SAC was there. And they were very helpful to me. I mean, they gave me a lot of rain, which is hard to do to a crazy man like me. And they had the guts to do it. And then I had support. I'll tell you an interesting story. We're in a hotel room in Branson, Missouri, and there's a knock on the door, and this lady comes in. She's drop dead beautiful, and she said, "Hi, I'm Mary Ann. I fly Night Stalker." And I said, "What the hell's that?" She said, "Well, it was a surveillance aircraft that flew up at thousands of feet with IR and thermal, and can see everything on the ground and can talk to you." And Buck Ravel, one of our executives, made that available to me. They'd never done that in a criminal case before. It'd always been for spy guys.
That was in the early 80s?
Yeah. It was during the CSA raid. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's amazing. I mean, if you touch your arm on your chest, you can see it from 5,000 feet. I mean, it's really sensitive. I mean, they find people underwater, and they gave that to me. and that became my asset. And they gave me a ride in it to let me see what I could see and see the comms so they could talk to me and say who was here and who's there, where my people are. And it saved our life. Oh, that thing was amazing. And I had a lot of help there. And I don't know what goes into the FBI now. It's got a different body. But then if the FBI is like a family, and we all knew each other by our first names, and we knew each other's children, their wives, and they just wanted to be sure that we're going to live through this thing. The Bureau thought there'd be huge casualties there. The deputy director told me we expect this shootout at the end of all shootouts. It had been worse in Waco, and so we want to be sure you had what you need, and they gave it to me, and we pulled it off. I had smart guys working for me. Let me say that again. That was the thing that really mattered. They were smarter than me, frankly.
Well, to be fair, the CSA, I believe I've seen a training tape, and I think I have footage of it that I may be inserting here, where they showed the training that they were doing. So they were doing military style or paramilitary style training within their organization, I guess you would call it.
Oh, absolutely, right there on the compound. Maybe in Silhouette City or something. Anyway,
Yes, I think that was it. I think Silhouette City
they
sounds familiar.
trained to do that, and their kids trained. And so, I mean, I don't. Here's the way shootouts start. Generally, it starts wrong. It's an accident, and people start shooting, and everybody else does sympathetic shooting, and you got a firefight. And I did not want that. Would we win it? Oh, hell yeah, we'd win it. We'd kill about 3 of them. And actually, this is interesting. I don't think we've talked about this. I gave my snipers orders that if they came out with that long rocket, that the person carrying was to be immediately shot in the shoulder or leg. Don't kill him. And they were like, "What?" I said, "I want him to go back inside and be wailing, screaming and hollering for help. That'll accuse the others. It will emphasize the need to give up." And I know that sounds kind of coarse and kind of cold, but I'm trying to keep people alive here and avoid a major conflict. And did it violate FBI policy? Oh yeah, yeah. Our snipers shoot people in the head. When I told mine to shoot them in the leg or the shoulder, they were like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what we're going to do." We didn't have to, frankly, because of the negotiation and I think maybe Providence. There was one occasion where I took an assault team onto the grounds of the compound and actually took an assault team inside their compound. I went up on the houses, porches, and was in there moving around. How did we pull that off? I mean, we're not invisible. I think Providence helped us a little bit there, not a little bit, a lot, and made it so that we could do this thing. I don't think the angels in heaven wanted to see a bunch of people shot and killed. Of course, they are every day all over the world, but in this particular case, it worked for us.
Well, with HRT, and I don't know if you've worked them in the past, but like I've interviewed Christopher Voss, and he's talked about, along with Derek Gaunt, who works with him, how when most of these things happen, it's when things go wrong. Like, if somebody goes in and they're robbing a pawn store or they're robbing something and then things go wrong. So it's not like they necessarily intend to go shoot people up or get hostages or things like that. That's just things go sideways. So you're starting on your back foot in a weird way with people who are very hair triggered and nervous about what is happening. Is that a fair analysis?
100% true. 100% true. Most people are just trying to get away, and they try to shoot in order to affect their escape. But let me say this: really well-trained people, like who go through selection and make the team and train with them for all those years, they are not likely to shoot you unless you need it.
Mhm.
My wife and I were mugged one night on Interstate 20 by a bunch of guys, and we saw it coming, and we were able to stop it. And I didn't shoot any of them. I protected myself with my weapons, but I didn't have to shoot them. And my wife said to me, "You're not even breathing heavy here." And I said, well, I've done this before. And I think people who are well trained are less likely to go to the deadly force option than people who are than others. And I'm not bragging, but I mean, I've been involved in a whole lot of pretty dicey things, and I think because you're not likely to start shooting. And the cops told me when they came, they said, "You ambush them; they didn't ambush you." And I said, "Well, that was what I planned to do." I mean, I've had a little experience, and it worked, and we didn't have to go through the trauma of a grand jury or that nonsense. My wife wasn't put in danger, so it was, we were very lucky.
Very lucky because even if you both came out okay, if there was an exchange, there's going to be a lot of trauma that your wife would have to deal with. You might have to deal with. I mean, these things stick with you. So I imagine that at least that the encounter actually was easier just to move on forward from it.
100%, 100%. You know, um, I worked with a guy named Christian Pertot. He was the commander of the French counterterrorist team. He helped me a lot when I started, and he told me, he said, all life has value, and even the life of a terrorist has value, and that means a lot to me.
Oh, that does make sense. There's somebody's son or sister or brother or
And God made
whatever.
them. God made us all.
Yeah, 100%. Now, shifting forward, I guess would you agree the next big incident you happen to be tangentially there, Ruby Ridge, because I think you were a commander in Oregon at the time, or something had happened, and all of a sudden Ruby Ridge is going down. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I can. Well, I was the deputy assistant director at the time. Ruby Ridge went down. Again, it was another mission from, excuse me, that we were not involved in. It was a failure. They ended up killing Sammy Weaver and had a big shootout, and we lost a very brave Marshal Deegan, who I worked with at the Atlanta prison riot. I knew him well, sort of. And it was a foobar. It was just a mess, and they did it stupidly. ATF indicted Randy, as I recall, for having a shotgun that was sawed off a quarter inch too short. Who cares? I mean, I deal with terrorists, and I deal with, gun length on a shotgun in bear country where I'd want a sawed off shotgun up there. And they made a big deal about it, and they end up in a big standoff, and then the FBI HRT got called in there. I didn't go. They didn't send me.
I don't want to interrupt, but I just want to clarify. I've been told, or I've been under the understanding that he was almost set up. Like it was the cutoff was so minimal that visually he might have thought that the gun was okay, almost like an entrapment type of thing. I don't know if that's fair, but I have
I don't know
heard
if
that
it's
claim.
fair or not, but it was a quarter inch. You tell me. Quarter inch is what, that much? What difference does it make? I mean, I even wrote a memo when this thing was going on. I said, what difference does it make? We're getting ready to launch an assault on a cabin with kids in it, kill a bunch of people over a quarter inch shotgun barrel? Give me a break. And there was actually a kind of a memo in support of Randy. Sometimes people do things for reasons that are not apparent. And it was like ATF's assault on Waco. That was ridiculous, stupid. And I know the guys that were there. I know some were shot. Some of my friends. And they're good guys, but they didn't plan that thing. Headquarters planned that thing. And they had a terrible tactical option. It was like the worst I've ever heard. Have a good reason to do a tactical operation. Don't make it for publicity. Don't do it in order to make yourself look big or for your one of your hearings or whatever. Don't do that. But again, sometimes you just got to say no. And fortunately, there was nobody there that had the balls to say no.
I have a question on that. And I don't want to project into it, but I was just thinking, Gordon Call, I think, was also the U.S. Marshals when the initial confrontation went completely awry. Could this be some personal grudges that are in the mix?
No, I think it's publicity.
Okay.
You have to know what tactics to use. I mean, when we talked a little about Waco, I mean, David Koresh, my 2 midget dogs that I kind of arrested David Koresh. He's a wimp. He's a frail guy. He goes for ice cream every day. He goes to the mag shop and trades guns and crap and runs on the road. And so instead of driving by in your sedan and you're snatching his ass into the car, you launch a misguided, horribly planned operation. You got a bunch of people killed. Why? Why don't you just put him in the car? Or what? How about call him and say, David, come see me. You don't have to go to the option. It's like during the last administration, we'd send SWAT teams out to arrest a guy wanted for a misdemeanor. Are you kidding me? SWAT teams are very lethal. And think what it does to the children in the house, the neighbors, guys out in stormtrooper suits, machine guns, and then it's just a bad application. And I will tell you, I'm a tactical guy. I was a sniper. Commanded a SWAT team. I commanded hostage rescue team. I've done hundreds of tactical operations, and sometimes you don't need to. I had Iran Contra. You know what I did with all the guys in that case? I said, come see me. We didn't arrest anybody. Just come see me. And it worked out fine. We got everything we needed. And I think there's a tendency when you have a tactical unit to think you have to use it all the time. You don't. Most of the time you don't. I did a case once in Baltimore where we had a really bad fugitive located in a hotel. And the local sheriff was there, and we came on, and it was our fugitive. And his tactical says, we want to gas the whole hotel. I said, no, we're not doing that. We're not gassing anything. And so we just went over and arrested the guy. Had a simple plan, and it worked, and we got him. But you don't always need to go to your highest option. Go to your least obtrusive option, and you're generally better off. Now, sometimes you got to go to war. Sometimes it's throwing lead and shooting people and gassing people and whatever. But that's like 1/10 of 1%. You don't need to do it.
No, that makes sense. So now in Ruby Ridge, it started with the marshals, and I believe the dog got shot and killed. His son got shot and killed. And is that when the HRT came in at that point?
Yeah, we weren't there. We came in later.
Now, did you ultimately work it at all with Bo Gritz or anything else that was going on?
Well, I
or were you
did,
at
yes.
headquarters the whole time?
Yes. I called out there. I said, give me a negotiation plan. They didn't have one. I said, well, make one. What do you mean you don't have a negotiation plan? And so then we learned about Bo Gritz. Grice or Gritz.
He just died in February, by the way.
I did not know that. My intel guy on the HRT was a friend of Gritz's, and they followed each other in Vietnam. So anyway, I'm trying to think how I'm going to put this. I did get involved because I ordered negotiation when they didn't do any. And then I recommended we send Bo Gritz in there. Now that violates FBI policy too. We don't put people inside that come from the outside in a crisis situation. We just don't do it. We've done it several times now, and I think it works sometimes. And I think that helped. Chris talked them out. They all came out.
Well, in fairness, you weren't just, picking somebody up off the street and saying, hey, can you go in there and talk to them? Bo Gritz is, I believe, Special Forces.
Yes.
Rambo was kind of based on his life or somehow tied with him. And Randy Weaver was in the Special Forces. So I'm guessing you were hoping that they were like-minded at community.
We knew that. Thank you. That good point. We have good intel in the FBI. We figured that out. They had an affinity for each other. So, I mean, we weren't doing any good with them. Our negotiators didn't scratch the surface. But Gris did, and he walked them out. So they all lived.
Okay, so next in the sequence, I guess we'd have to go into Waco. Now, I've interviewed a negotiator who worked at Waco. I'm assuming you probably know him, Gary Nessner.
Well,
and
he worked for me.
Well, okay. From what I understand, he actually did have communication with David Koresh, and they were talking, and there was a flow going back and forth. But then patience was lost. I'll just say by headquarters or somebody of that type, and then he got yanked off of it. This is again my understanding, and then boom, 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 things rolled, and that's where we had obviously the horrible tragedy that happened. So to back up, am I off? Can you tell me what happened and
Yeah,
correct where I'm wrong?
Gary was there to the very end, I believe. I was the deputy. I was not there. They didn't send me. There were two very, very experienced commanders in these things at headquarters, and the hostage rescue team commander after me was there, and I was there, and they didn't send us. They sent other people I'd never done it before, and I really that sticks to my craw a lot. I think. Well, there were a lot of decisions to make. It wasn't a matter of lost patience. It was we weren't getting anywhere. We had kids in there. We were stuck. They wouldn't negotiate. They wouldn't negotiate at all. Koresh was playing games. Deltas told us that we should shoot Koresh, and I kind of agree. We probably should have. We didn't, of course, but I think a lot of things came into view, and they had a big meeting at headquarters with Reno and the director. They brought Delta in, and they had a meeting about it. I wasn't involved in the meeting at all. I was there, but I just sat in the back row, and they decided to put tear gas in, which I did not oppose at all. I love tear gas, and they had a plan to put tear gas in, and they went a little beyond the plan, and a huge firefight broke out, and we all know what happened. I thought that I believe in the ideal that women will protect their children. They didn't here. They left them in there to die, and it says a lot about Koresh and his people. And that's what happened. It did not resolve itself well. But again, we didn't start that damn thing. ATF started that thing, and get that case to me. You and I can do that case. I can do that with my daughter. Probably my granddaughter and I could do it. But ATF went in there. Remember I mentioned earlier about going to the highest level when you don't need to? That was not that kind of case. What even that high of a threat case? You just go get David and it's over. Instead, they launched an attack with a foolhardy plan. Got a bunch of guys killed. Some of those guys killed are my friends. I worked with them. Bill Buford was shot there. And Bill and I did the CSA together. He's an American hero. Courageous, smart, tough guy. And he got shot there. And for nothing. And I resent that. I resent the people at ATF headquarters that made them do it. They were looking for publicity. And they certainly got it.
So it was almost a repeat of Ruby Ridge, in your opinion? Maybe looking for headlines or something like that? Why didn't
I think even more so. I think that certainly on a much more grand scale. I mean, this was world news. Ruby Ridge was a blip, and they sacrificed really good men and women. Got people shot and hurt, and some killed, and that was a shame. And nothing ever happened to them. They retired, and Pat Dumb and Happy went to PTA.
I want to visit something, though, because, again, April 19th, a decision was made by somebody to, do that assault on that date and that time. Did people put the the date together at all? Was there any intelligence or knowledge of how important that date was to the whatever we want to call it, the
Now, I can
movement
say
or
you
what have
think
you?
that. Absolutely not. There was absolutely no correlation, no even consideration, no discussion. It's just because we were ready. Had nothing to do with the date.
Wow. So crazy, crazy coincidence then.
Yeah, very crazy.
Okay, well, and then that led to a fateful thing because while you're observing this operation, Timothy McVeigh is parked on the side of the road handing out pamphlets and I guess Turner
Turner
Diaries
Diaries.
copies at the exact same time. So
Now, let's talk about that for a minute. He was very dismayed because remember, Tim McVeigh is a racist. He is a horrible racist. And when he saw black people coming out of there, he was disheartened because this is not the people he thought he was. They were. He was not there. He was there because he was supporting racism, and these people were not racist. They were all kind of a variety of races and people and persuasions, and no, it had nothing to do with that. Zero.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is something that I've discovered over time is that David Koresh wasn't in that side of it. The
Oh
only
no.
thing they had in common with the white supremacy side was they both hated the government and they both liked guns. But it wasn't like they were necessarily like-minded.
Oh Lord,
David
no.
Koresh wasn't Christian Identity. He was Seventh-day Adventist spinoff, I believe.
He
And
was. You're right.
and there was like a lot of mixed relationships even. It wasn't just multiracial, but even like mixed marriages and things of that sort, correct?
Well, and gay and lesbian people were in there. It certainly wasn't what McVeigh thought it was.
Interesting. But then he used it for justification on the revenge. And I definitely want to get into, what you know about him. Not many of us actually talked to Timothy McVeigh. So you have had conversations with him and maybe had some degree of insight. But I want to shift forward from there. Would you? There was an incident that happened before Oklahoma City, and I just want to bring it up because it was almost an incident that could have been, but it didn't actually occur. And from my understanding, ATF wanted to assault Elohim City not long before the Murrah bombing occurred. And the FBI told them, no, we don't need to be doing that. We don't want another Waco. Do you know anything about that? Is that
No, I
something
do
you
not.
can discuss?
I do not know about that. No, I know there was. I know a lot of things happened after that. I know that, for example, I became very close to the Texas Constitutional Militia, which was associated with Elohim City, and I used to meet with them. Matter of fact, we should probably talk about this, I guess. Tim McVeigh's people tried to kill my family, and they actually came after us. And the FBI intercepted some of them on the way and stopped them. And then for a long time, my family was under death threats. And I used to go to soccer games with a stun grenade in his pocket and a 9mm in my hip and about 4 magazines and an M4. My kids had to live through that for a long time. And once a year, we actually went into hiding. So there was one day I get a call
Let me
from,
guess the date that you go to hiding every year.
I'm sorry. No, April 19th, of course.
Yeah.
So I get a call one day from one of my contacts at the militia. He said, the FBI is getting ready to raid Elohim City. I said, no, they're not. And he said, yeah, they are. I said, no, they're not. So I got on my motorcycle, I ride over their compound, and I go in there with my partner, and we're in there, and they're all parading around with their weapons, and all these fat guys trying to look like commandos, and they're getting ready to go up and defend Elohim City. So Bob Briggs, who I mentioned earlier, the commander in Oklahoma, is a dear friend, and his wife is a friend of my wife's, and we're all buddies. And so I called him and said, you getting ready to raid Elohim City? He said, are you kidding me? if I want something from Oklahoma City, I call Robert, and Robert brings it to me. I mean, they had a great relationship with Robert Mueller. And so we diffused the thing. It was over. But, it's interesting. The Bureau did not do this very often. I did it a lot, but we did not make friends with the other guys. To meet with the Texas Constitutional Militia, that was kind of unusual. And they actually offered to come protect me and my family from the people trying to kill me. And so we used to meet once a month and for breakfast. And we'd say a prayer, and then we'd argue back and forth about how bad the government was. And I generally agreed with them about how bad it was. And we became good friends. And they are kind of adventurers. I mean, they like playing army. They like putting on their crap and running around and shooting guns and missing stuff and running out of gas and finding out they're not really commandos. But we had a lot of fun with them, and it was interesting because of that relationship. We were able to diffuse an incident where they were going to go fight the FBI, and it was because we knew each other, and we knew each other by first name, and we worked together and talked together almost every day.
Can I drop some names on you now that you're mentioning Texas militia? I think there may be some ties in there.
If I can remember, I can barely remember.
Well, I'll just if they hit you, cool. But Andreas Strassmeyer.
Oh, I know about that guy. Interesting. An enigma. Strassmeyer was probably present at Oklahoma City with McVeigh. I know they were associated with each other. I don't know the degree, but they were. They knew each other. And there are a lot of questions about Strassmeyer. Who was he? Who did he work for? And how did he do it?
I think he also was tied in with the Texas militia. Maybe it's not the same one, but I think it was one of them. How about Dave Holloway and Kirk Lyons?
Don't know them.
Nope. Okay. Like I said, there's so many names out there, and I'm just throwing them out where I can.
You do a TV series of this, as you know.
Oh, I intend to at some point, and I think there's some been done. I mean, it really is like a Netflix setup. Whatever.
I think they did one called The Order or something.
There is The Order, yes. That was a movie with Jude Law, I think it was, as the FBI agent. Well, anyway, yeah, they did do that. There's one on Waco. There's a lot to chew on. I mean, I had no idea. I started one of my shows. We've been covering the JFK assassination, and to me, this is like that multiplied by so many, because there's so many players, so many people, and so much going on. It's hard for me to get my head around it, but I'm trying. I'm giving it a good game.
You're doing a good job. You have better comprehension of the dates and times than I do.
Well, yes, but you lived through it. Okay, so we're going to then shift forward to the fateful day, April 19th, 1995.
Quickly, CNN joins affiliate in Oklahoma City, KFOR, to bring you the latest that they're having live updates on this explosion that's happened at the federal court building in downtown Oklahoma City.
We are a block from where the blast occurred, and they are just treating people here on the side of the road about a block away.
We have heard reports that there is a daycare center in that building. We're looking at video of some of the victims.
We understand now that we are seeing some pictures of the arrival of some of the children who were in the daycare center located in that building.
The people that I talked to say they survived by diving underneath their desks.
When you see pictures of what is left of the federal building, it's hard to believe anybody is walking away from this explosion today.
It sounded like just one big boom.
And significantly, 2 incidents happened on that day. Obviously, the Oklahoma City bombing, but also later that day was the execution of Richard Snell.
Yes.
And there is reportage that Richard Snell was very interested on checking out CNN on that day. And his spiritual advisor was Richard Millar, or is it Robert or Richard?
Robert Millar.
Robert Millar, I apologize. who was there attending, for last rites or whatever it was, who was, Elohim City. And the implication, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or not, is that Richard Snell absolutely knew that the Murrah building might be bombed, and it was almost an homage to him on the same day, April 19th. He's being executed. He wanted to bomb that exact same building. He was traveling in the same circles. And the guy who was seen to him ran the town, whatever village that tied a lot of this together. Am I completely off base
No,
in,
you're not at all.
drawing these?
You're pretty much right on the base. He was joyful that they blew up the Murrah building, which he planned to blow up many years before. One of the reasons they didn't blow up the Murrah building is that the HRT column. A lot of the guys that were going to do that were Ellison and that crew and CSA, and because we got them, took them out, and a lot of their supporters, a lot of their activists, we got them all, and that kind of delayed some of it. Of course, let's see, who did he kill? He killed a state trooper, as I recall, and a guy,
And a pawn shop owner.
yeah, and a pawn shop guy. I mean, he did that. We actually got involved in that case a little bit, and yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. I think there's a circle here, and that old song, "The Circle Can't Be Broken." We don't know all the people that are in the circle.
Now I'm going to go the other direction, and it's hard because I try to be neutral, and I'll be talking to some people who are very controversial as well, kind of going on the other side, which I'm sure you did too. I don't think of this as being too different than as a FBI agent. I'm sure that you talk to bad guys all the time because, well, you're not really hanging out at the Friars Club doing your job.
No.
You're
No.
hanging out with some bad people, so you're going to talk to controversial people.
You know that song, "I've got friends in low places"?
There you go.
That's me.
Fair enough. Okay, so Oklahoma City went down. Wait, I'm backing up. Sorry. Elohim City, because I feel like Elohim City, it is so intertwined with all of this that there were people like Carol Howe. I'm not
Yes.
sure if you're familiar with her name, but supposedly
definitely.
ATF informant. I believe that's been confirmed
Yes.
definitively. Strassmeyer, who I mentioned, was supposedly head of security, or he wasn't. Depends on who you talk to.
And he may have worked for the Israelis. He may have worked for the Germans.
Germans, Israelis, CIA. Jesse Trentadue tried to do a FOIA, I believe, for the CIA about Strassmeyer, and he got shut down for national security in the FOIA trial, which sort of implies that they knew who the guy was, and it's almost like a confirmation through the shutdown. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, if it wasn't, they wouldn't have raised it as an issue. Of course.
Okay. So he was an informant. Then you have the ARA, Aryan Republican Army, who the leader of that, Peter Langdon, now Donna Langdon, which, by the way, is the second trans individual, I guess, in your career, if you count the case of the dog that inspired the Dog Day Afternoon.
Yes.
He, at the time, was a Secret Service informant, and all these people are kind of tied in with Elohim City, and people nicknamed it Alphabet City. Is that something you've looked into or you have thoughts about?
No, you got to remember, in the FBI, when you get a case, you do it, and then you go do another one. You very seldom stay in it, especially if you're a commander. I was number 3 in the bureau, so I wasn't making cases. You just go into other things, and it's not like we're baseball player keeping our stats. We don't do that, or at least I don't.
Fair enough.
And you go do another job. I mean, when I would do a job, I'll tell you, I've recovered about 300 hostages in my career. I thought I only got 250 until I talked to one of my agents. Said, "No, we got 50 there." Oh, we did. I mean, I don't keep stats. My mind's not sharp enough to keep anything straight, much less stats. And so you just go to other things. And the Bureau is a humongous organization. And while this group may be working on it, you probably know anything about it.
Then we'll just shift right into it. Oklahoma City happened. I believe you got the call. You had to drive to Oklahoma City from Dallas at the time,
Yes, yes.
and you were involved in picking up Timothy McVeigh at the Noble County Courthouse. I think you were part of the escort for him.
Well, I was the guy that arrested him. I read the team. Yeah, I commanded the division in Maryland. And then the director of the FBI, Louis Freeh, came to me and said, "Tell me why I can't transfer you to Dallas." I said, "Well, you can transfer me to the moon if you want to. You're the director." And he said, "Would you like to go?" I said, "Yes, my home." So I went down there for about 13 months, I think, without my family. Didn't see them. I had kids in school. And my wife and my 2 daughters came to Dallas to buy a house and build a house and put the girls in school and the boys in school. And they got here on, guess what day? April 18th. April 19th, we're having breakfast with friends and news flash explosion downtown Oklahoma. And my wife looked at me and says, "Well, I guess you're out of here." I said, "No, it's not my case, not my division. I don't command that." And 5 minutes later, I got a call and said, "Go, it's bombing, and the director wants you there." So, I had people bring me extra magazines for my pistol and stuff I needed, and went home and got a bag and started driving north on the highway, and horrible storm. It's the worst storm maybe ever. And I get there and I walk into the command post. It was already up and running. I mean, the FBI is amazing. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Patriot Day. There's a scene in there where they walk in and set up a command post. It's like a machine, bum, 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 bum. And that's where they work. And they evolved. They've been like that since I was here. And so I walked in, saw Rex, and he said, "Are you coming to take over?" I said, "No, I'm coming to help you. I'm not taking over." And he said, "What do you look around? Tell me what you want to do, what we should do." So I walked around, saw what we're doing. Bob had done it. He's an amazing guy, super smart. And he said, "What?" He came back. He said, "What do you think?" I said, "Send half of everybody home. Cut off 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Send all the twos home because we're going to be working this for a long damn time." And what happens in these cases, everybody jumps in and they're working on adrenaline and they all crash. And so I sent them all home to go to bed. Come see you tomorrow. And that's where we started. And I set up the triage spot. I was in charge of the building of the bomb. And so we started bringing people out and then bodies out. And then we started having to process everything. We set up a triage evidence response location. I brought my evidence response team for Dallas up here. I'm up there, and we started working and going piecemeal. And I'll tell you interesting. This is really interesting. On April 20th, I'm walking through the command post, and you can imagine. I mean, you can almost hear the buzz of activity. And I'm walking through there, and an Asian who I did not know came up and said, "Boss, why are you so calm?" I said, "I'm calm. I'm not going to solve this damn thing. You are. I just had to be here, get you what you need, and be sure people don't bother you." And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I'm not solving this. You are." Commanders don't solve cases. It's not like TV. It's the commanders make it so that you can solve your case and keep headquarters dorks out of it, and
You allocate resources as your
allocate resource, set the plan, and then let it go. I mean, I will tell you, I think you'll be surprised with this. All the missions I've done in my life as a commander of the HRT, I've never flown one of them. Did not command a single one. I gave the mission, let the boys play it. Because if I plan it, my ego's so big, it'd be perfect, and I couldn't critique it. If they plan it, I can look at it and say, "Well, how about this and this and that?" And so you have to put things in perspective. Commanders don't solve cases. Commanders get you resources and fight off politicians. That's their job.
shift to the side just slightly because you mentioned keeping commanders off people's cases, etc. Um, Director Free, what kind of director was he? Good, bad, indifferent? What are your thoughts
Well,
on him?
Louis Freeh is a good director. He's a good agent. He and I have had a few conflicts, but we're men, and so we will have conflict. We have different perspectives and things. But not once did Louis Freeh tell me what to do. The commanders, Bob Ricks and I and the others, we made the decisions, and we our decisions based on input from the supervisors and agents. They told us what we needed and to do, and we listened to them and made a decision and did it. He was good. He didn't even come down there. He wasn't even in Oklahoma for a week or so. He showed up, met with me. We shook hands and we talked about what's going on and asked me a lot of questions. And he's a smart guy. Lou is a brilliant man. He's much smarter than most of us. And I think he was a good director. We didn't always agree. He'll agree with that we didn't always agree. But he's a good guy.
Okay.
I wish we had him back, frankly.
Hmm?
I wish we had him back.
Okay, fair enough. Let me see. So going forward, you were there. Can you describe what happened? I'm guessing that everything converged to identify Tim McVeigh, and there's a couple weird things about Timothy McVeigh that I feel he did that didn't completely make sense. And I'm not, I'm not trying to judge law enforcement. It's his movements that didn't make sense. Where he checked into the Dreamland, and he made sure that he used his real name and an address that could tie to him, but yet he rented the Ryder truck using a fake ID, which to me would be even harder because you have to provide insurance when you rent something or things like that. Typically, it didn't quite make sense to me why the guy would be so careful that he would order pizza or order Chinese food under an assumed name, but he would sign in with a real name. But then he would rent a truck with the same assumed name. Did any of that strike you, or is this just noise?
I did a TV show with Bill O'Reilly once, and he said, "Danny, how do you catch these guys so fast?" I said, "Because they're bad criminals. They're good terrorists and bad criminals. They make mistakes. Also, don't you think Tim McVeigh was nervous? He was scared to death. He's getting ready to commit the largest mass murder in the history of the country at that time. Do you think he's a little nervous? When you get nervous, you make mistakes. And I can't account for that. He just did a couple stupid things. First of all, why didn't he put his license plate on the back of his car better? Why did it fall off? I mean, come on, you just put together this very complicated, sophisticated bomb that has many components, and it blows up. I think it may be the largest non-nuclear explosion in the history of the country. It was unbelievable. But he can't put a license plate on a car? Come on. That's just where things work. Maybe it's Providence. I don't know.
Okay. So when you learned about him and you went to arrest him,
yes,
and I'm guessing that was at the Noble County Courthouse. Can you describe what happened, how that went down?
Well, yeah, I can. We identified him pretty quickly, and had the name from the. We had Tim McVeigh's name, and so an ATF agent did an NCIC search, and found out that he'd been arrested. And he came barreling into the command post and said, he's in jail. So Weldon Kennedy was actually the overall commander of the bombing. Great man. He looked at me and said, "Go get him." And so the HRT helicopter was there. So I commandeered that, and we jumped in the helicopter with no doors on it and flew up to the site where his car was on the highway. I think it was on 35. And dropped off some people, and the state trooper came to get me and drove me as lickety split to Perry, Oklahoma. And I got out of the car, and I got in jeans and T-shirt, whatever, or boots, and I'm not looking like anybody. except a cowboy. And this elderly man came up to me and said, "Are you boys from the FBI?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, if you have a problem with the evidence, put him out the back gate. We'll deal with him." I said, I think we got this." And so we went in, and the agents approached them, and they asked him, as I recall, they asked him, "Do you know where we're here?" And he said, "It's about that thing in Oklahoma." And it was game on. So we took him into custody, and to show you how ill prepared we were, I didn't even have a car. So I had to borrow the sheriff's wife's minivan, and I put McVeigh in the minivan, and we took him to the airport and put him in a helicopter and right to Tinker Air Force Base.
Now, was he chatty at the time,
No,
or silent,
stoic.
or
Stoic, very deferential to me. We arrived at the landing zone for the LZ for the helicopter that eventually got us down there. Because if you got a guy like this, you don't be driving a car. Somebody will ambush and kill you. So you want to be in a helicopter, high performance helicopter. So we get there to the LZ, and we started getting out of the car, and I set him down. I said, "Okay, do not cause me trouble in this bird. I will hurt you really badly. You be a gentleman. You be treated like a gentleman." He said, "Yes, sir, I got it." And he did. He rode right beside me right here. Never looked left or right, just flying. So the helicopter is Huey, and it's one of the ones I flew on the HRT, same pilot. And he said, he started taking off. He started climbing. And I got on the intercom. I said, "What are you doing? Get on the ground. I want this thing on the deck," because the way you avoid being ambushed with a rocket in a helicopter is not fly high, but fly a little low, fly map of the earth, where you're jumping over fences and over trees and around buildings and whatever. So they can't track you with either something, RPG, a law, or whatever. And so he put it on the deck, and we flew like that all the way to Perry. Now, on the side here, as we're going up to drop off at the car to ultimately go get McVeigh, my bomb tech, a brave guy, he'll disarm a nuclear bomb. He hates helicopters, scares the heck out of him. So he's over there looking like nervous and kind of shifting his feet back and forth. And I asked my deputy, I said, "What's wrong with him?" He said, "He's afraid of helicopters." I said, "Okay, let me talk to him." So I went and put my hand on his shoulder and said, "Look, about half of all helicopter rides end without a crash. So we'll probably get a pretty good chance." And he went, he roared back and looked at me like, he would have said "F you," probably. But anyway, the whole way over there, with no doors on the helicopters, we're flying on the ground. I mean, that's not scary for me. I did it. That's what we did every day. Most people, that'd be a little nerve-wracking. And he kept looking at me and giving me the bird, and as we're flying up there. So the guy's he's an American hero. He's a smart guy. He knows more about explosives than anybody. He's the one that analyzed the bombing in Oklahoma. And I needed him there when I got him McVeigh, in case McVeigh started talking. So he went with me. He didn't like me very much, but it's not a popularity contest.
Okay, fair enough. And is that the only encounter you had with Timothy McVeigh? You pretty much moved on
In
to
the
other
helicopter,
things?
yes. I mean, I'm sorry, in the car before I put him in the helicopter.
Okay. Now I want to move forward a little bit, because there are some real questions about Oklahoma City. And the one thing that really brought me into this is the author of this book, Blowback, and I encourage everybody, reached out to me for an interview, and I read the book, and I kind of went into it, okay, some crazy GI, whatever, did this stuff. I was in the Army. I know that there were some, different elements and things like that. I didn't really think a lot of it. But reading the book, what bothered me more than anything, and then later on, I even found a quote from you on PBS, is John Doe number 2. And I believe your quote and I'm paraphrasing, is essentially something like one or two, that'd be one thing, but 24 people who saw somebody, that's a big deal. And my personal stance is that I understand that eyewitnesses are terrible in the sense that, like, they might say somebody has red hair, but they're really blonde, or
They're
they could say that
5'6"
they're
or
2
four
or 3
six
inches
two.
taller, but they don't make up somebody out of thin air. That is what really bothered me, is that it was witness after witness after witness who said that apparently Timothy McVeigh was with another person
In the truck.
and in the truck. Can we talk about that?
Sure. Ask me a
What
question.
okay, what are your thoughts? Is there a John Doe 2, and did he get away?
I don't know the answer to that. There were, I think, 24 people who saw him in the truck.
Mhm.
I've read, I think it's 24. FD 302 search reports that says that people saw somebody in the truck with Tim McVeigh. Even the director of the FBI asked me, "What about John Doe number 2?" I said, "I don't know." You got to remember, they took me off that case.
Right.
I was removed after I went out and got 40A in where was that? Where Kingman, Arizona.
Kingman, Arizona, I think, right?
Yeah. They brought me back to headquarters, and I was done. I never touched the case again. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't
Now
know.
that was I don't want to pass that by, because that seemed to be unusual. Like I heard an interview you did with Kathy Sanders, and I'm of the understanding that you got 48 business as usual, and then all of a sudden, boom, yanked. You're pulled back to headquarters and, dare I
Did an
say, put
interview,
on ice
yes.
for 2 years.
Oh my God, yes. They put me. I mean, I commanded Texas. I commanded the top half of the state of Texas, and they sent me back to Dallas. And then a short time later, I got a call from the director of the FBI. Said, the deputy attorney general is putting you and others on leave, administrative leave, while we conduct an inquiry. I said, about what? I said, aren't I entitled to know? I mean, I know the FBI process. I ran the FBI's disciplinary program, so I know it works. And he said, well, that's all I can tell you. So for 2 years, I got full pay, benefits, could be armed, could be doing anything I wanted to do. I couldn't go to my office. Couldn't talk to anybody in the FBI. Wasn't allowed to. And that was it. I mean, I lost the mortgage on my house. Had threats from McVeigh's people to kill me. We totally changed our lifestyle. And then one day, 2 years later, my lawyer, who's one of the best lawyers in the country, Chris Todd, who did the Iran-Contra case, I mean, a major, major player. And as a matter of fact, he called me when it was all over the media. And he called me, said, "What's going on?" I said, "I don't know. I have no idea." He said, "Well, I'm representing you." Sent me a couple $1 million. I was on my motorcycle someplace out in West Texas, I think. And he called me and said, "I just met with the lawyers. It's over for you. You're exonerated." I said, "Exonerated of what?" And he said, I asked him then, he said, "There's never been any allegations against you. Never any charges. They just put you on leave." Yeah, you can deduce what you think, and I can deduce what I think. But it's an interesting story.
Okay, well, you were in the FBI for, I mean, well over 20 years. Have you ever seen? Okay, 30. I apologize.
31 years.
Have you ever seen a case where people were arbitrarily put on administrative leave and not told why or what, after the most major incident that happened in U.S. history at that point in terms of terrorism? I mean, that seems kind of odd.
Well, see, try living it. Oh yeah,
I know. I'm trying to.
It's major odd. It's crazy. Makes no sense. I mean, a lot of guys put on leave. It wouldn't just be 7 of us, all in the criminal. Even the deputy directors put on leave. Larry Potts was put on leave. Good guy, smart guy, very talented agent and administrator, and he was put on leave same number of years I was. 2. I did write a book though. I did write.
Well, that's helpful, sure, but if you were losing your mortgage, I mean, this is, it's not a light thing, and it's incredibly troubling. And I'm wondering if, remember we were talking earlier, and I was saying the timeline, like maybe there was a before and then there was an after. Is this a period of time that the FBI might have changed?
I don't know. I think when yes, let me say this. The FBI should be run by the director of the FBI, not by some deputy attorney general, because the most political entity in the government is the Department of Justice, without any doubt. And to put them over our personnel, especially, I mean, I was an experienced guy. I mean, I was number 3 in the FBI for a while, third down the chain, and a high-ranking official. I'm not saying I was very good at it, but I was there. Just put you on leave for 2 years. It was, it was traumatic. You have no idea. I mean, to try to protect my family, to try to deal with that, we have to be armed. Well, I was armed all the time anyway, but we have to be heavily armed with rifles and things is something that's disconcerting, and it makes you really angry. It makes you. I mean, I gave 31 years to that agency, and they. Oh, by the way, they told me I could come back, and I said no, I'm out of here. So I wanted out. I didn't want anything to do with them.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, after I was brought back on duty, the Attorney General invited me to a big celebration at DOJ in the Hall of Honor. Like, big deal.
A little insult to injury.
A little bit, but I went.
Okay. Good. Now, with everything that happened to you, did that raise questions about Oklahoma City for you personally to look into things yourself a little bit, or did you just say, "Oh, I don't know what it is. It could be anything. Whatever random."
Well, I mean, I've always been concerned about the 24 interviews that say that McVeigh was with somebody, because the FBI denies that there ever was, and I don't get that. But you know what? I don't look back. I look forward. I mean, I've done a lot of things since then. I've done the security for some of the most high-profile people in the world. I've won 40 lawsuits since I came back to work. I'm very successful business at that. I have a very successful munitions company. I've had a great career. God's blessed me, not only with a great wife, but with great opportunities, and I've taken advantage of them. I have great kids, great grandchildren, and now a great grandchild. You can believe that.
Wow.
And so God's blessed me with a lot of adventures, and some of the adventures are a little harder. I wish they were. I'm not Job. I don't want to go there, but yeah, I wouldn't change anything. Would I like some answers? Yeah, that doesn't matter. Not really.
Okay, well, and there's another question that came up because you mentioned the 24 witnesses, and I don't know if you've addressed this one. What about the footage? And I've interviewed Jesse Trinity multiple times, and he has, decades now fighting with FOIA, looking for surveillance footage from, I believe, the hotel across the street, the actual potential cameras on the Murrah building. And from what I understand, there was an FBI agent who allegedly approached, I think, the LA Times to sell a videotape of footage. Have you heard any of this, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I've seen one video, the video of the Ryder truck driving past the Murrah building. I've seen that, but it didn't tell you anything. It's just a picture of a truck. No, the other things are totally unfamiliar to me.
Okay, well, God, there's so much more I'd love to talk to you about. And maybe if you ever have time, I'd love to talk to you about security, things like that. I know you commented on the attempted assassination second attempt with Donald Trump outside of the golf course. I believe you were interviewed on that particular subject, and you covered Tiger Woods. But for the sake of this interview and everything here, I always like to ask, what is the one question I should have asked you and I really neglected to?
I think you pretty much covered it. I thought you did a great job. I've been interviewed many times on this whole subject, and you seem to have a very good grasp of all the facts. I think it's your presentation is really good. I can't think of anything. That's a good question to ask, but I think you're so thorough. I don't really have anything.
All right. Well, Danny, I appreciate it so much, and thank you so much. And I want to hold this up again so people can see that. And I will have a link down below in the description for anybody to check it out. And is it possible that if we can work out the timing or anything, I might be able to bring you back for a live stream where people can write in and ask questions? They're much smarter than I am. And
I've done a few podcasts. I did the Fieldhouse podcast.
Okay.
And it started off to be half hour and ended up being 4. So yeah, I think I like to talk to people. I don't think I have that much to offer. I mean, I had a fairly good recollection still. But yeah, that'd be fun.
I think you have a lot to offer.
Where are you? Where are you?
I'm in Hampton, Virginia. So Hampton Roads near Norfolk, Virginia Beach, that area.
I know it, bro. I used to live there.
Oh, okay.
I was at Quantico, Virginia, remember?
Okay, well, that's a little further north. I'm down.
But my wife went to Longwood.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's where I am. Sorry. Brain fart. I'm trying to think. Something popped in my head and it just literally went away, but that's a curse of
my
being
text.
black.
Just text me if you got a question on this.
Okay, well, I will do that. And Danny, thank you so much.
Good questions.
Thank
You
you.
had a great grasp. Better than mine.